is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk. My name is So Real Sunil. I got my main man over to the left of me. Gotta put up the left of me, my main man Jesse, and we are here today to break down week 1 of the 49ers against the Detroit Lions. Jesse, before we get into it, man, 49er football is back. We got to see a full game. It was a roller coaster, and I know you've been huffing and puffing over there, and it's been emotional after the first game. But how was it just to be able to watch 49er football again?
It was fantastic. I mean, it was something that we've obviously been looking forward to for, it seems like, forever. And, the game has come and gone. And I remember how stressful it is to be a fan. Let me just put it that way. So, it's interesting, right? Because this is my first year looking at it as more of like an analyst type, right? Mm-hmm. I've always analyzed the game and broke it down. And, even when my friends will message me, I'll have a little bit more in depth than the normal, like, oh, we suck or we need to do better, right? Like, right. I always look at the game a little bit deeper, but trying to pull a lot of emotion away from it and just looking at it for what it is, it's an interesting change for me. And, I feel like I did good week 1, but, we'll see if the losses start piling up, if my tune changes. So it'll be interesting to see how the season goes for me.
Yeah, well, let's start with just overall reaction to the game. Obviously, we're going to go in depth a lot more, but what was just your biggest, I guess, takeaways from the overall game?
Gosh, man, I don't even know where to start. It's always good to get a win in the NFL. Let me start with that, I guess. It's always good to get a win in the NFL. It's very hard to win in the NFL. And I think as you look across the NFL in week 1 and what's happened so far, you can see a lot of teams that should have won or expected to win didn't do so hot, right? Mm-hmm. So that shows you, especially week 1, a lot of things happen. The 49ers, even when they were bad under Chip Kelly and Tom Zula, they were winning week 1. So week 1 is a crapshoot. So to get out of there with a win is always a good feeling. But there's just so many questions that I have for this team. And those questions, quite frankly, aren't going to be answered. It's just one of those things that we have to figure out as we navigate through the season. And we'll talk about it more. But I would say my instant reaction is, whew, we made it out, and that's all that matters.
Look, I mean, this is a game of 2 halves, right? Maybe like 3 quarters to 1 quarter, right? Because the first half, I think all of our reaction is, my God, we get thank goodness for how this team is built. Everybody's looking really good. This is going to be a blowout. Maybe Trey Lance is going to be able to play the full 4th quarter because this game is looking to be out of hand. And then all of a sudden, Jason Veret goes down, which was just terrible to watch, man. Just the emotion that was on his face. That he's probably not coming back this season just from his reaction. And then, the 49ers let go of the rope for a while and luckily had enough of a cushion and enough ability to make that one last stop to be able to pull off the victory. But I think that if we look at the first half, there's a different way of analyzing the game. And then if we look at the second half, there's a different analyzing game. So for me, it was kind of like near the end of the game, it's kind of like all your emotions are you're just drained because you're like, I even tweeted, I was like, are we getting punked right now? Like, how is this happening? But I think that this is one of those situations where people could kind of jump off the cliff very easily because of how it ended. But there was definitely a lot of positives as well that I think people forgot just because it happened in the first half. So I think it's kind of like you got to be as emotionless as possible, which is really, really hard, obviously when we're fans. But
I'll say this though, too, Sunil. A lot of people I think not watching a game a second time so far, at least for me, the way that I left it is I didn't actually look at it as a tale of two halves. I looked at it as a tale of about 9 minutes in the second quarter, all the way until about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That was one tale. But really, the first 18 minutes, in my opinion, I thought the Lions dominated that game. They stayed in our territory the whole beginning of that game. They left points on the board multiple times. They blew it on a fourth down. They missed a field goal. Like, the 49ers were actually really lucky to have the lead that they had. And I thought early on, I'm going, okay, well, hold on a second. Like, the Lions are gashing the 49ers for run after run after run. And then, obviously they turned it around, the pick six and some other things happened. But even early on, I think the Lions were a formidable foe. And the score may not say it, but as far as the trenches, they were winning in the trenches. The defensive line was getting their butt whooped repeatedly early in that game, and that's what I remember early about the game. Did you see it any different?
Heather Taylor actually agrees with you. Super concerned about the run defense. Of course, the loss of Veret is a killer. I didn't see it that way. I thought that obviously the run defense was what I was most worried about. Obviously, they couldn't stop the run initially, but the defense stopped I think it was like one or two fourth downs, which I don't think was a fluke. I mean, Nick Bosa got in the backfield, which made the running back have to change directions, and slipped. And then it was a little bit of luck, obviously a missed field goal. And then, Dan Campbell going forward instead of like kicking the field goal. They definitely left points, but you play the game that's in front of you, and the 49ers bent, but they didn't break. I thought the defense was formidable for 50, however many, like the first 3.5 quarters. Then when Veret went down, obviously everything changed. Now, when I mean formidable, was there gashing happening? Absolutely. Like they were able to run. But once again, going into this game, I knew that was the one thing that they were going to try to do, because their best players on offense are Swift and Hawkinson. I can never pronounce his name.
Hawkinson,
yeah. So I knew that they were going to be decent at the run, because that's the bulk of their offense, right? So if all they're focused on is running the ball, to expect that we were going to be able to necessarily stop the run is kind of naive. However, I think that the 49ers defense was able to make timely stops, and that is something that I think we can't overlook, because everybody's just going to be like, oh my God, our defense is terrible, all this kind of stuff. That's what I'm seeing from Twitter. But I'm like, when push came to shove and they needed to make a stop, for the most part, they made that stop. And I think that is something to hold on to, and something moving forward that we can go back to and be like, look, these guys are still the people that are out there fighting for every play. And when push comes to shove, they're not gonna give up, which is something that I think has always been the makeup of the 49ers
for sure.
Shanahan. So let's go into some depth. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. Let's start analyzing the offense. What were some of your biggest takeaways overall, with just the offense?
Yeah, I mean, it looked pretty much like I thought it would. Obviously I thought Mostert would be the guy. When I talked about it before the game, I said Mostert would be the offensive MVP. And Elijah Mitchell came in and played just fine, right? He did everything that I expected Mostert to do. Yeah, beyond fine. Before the game, I said Jimmy would be 16 of 24 passing. No, wait. I think 16 to 24 passing is what I said. 16 to 24 passing with 224 yards and a touchdown. That basically was his day. I mean, he had the one long one to Debo. That was more on Debo than anything, making a play and running for 70 plus yards or whatever it was. But outside of that play, he played exactly the way that I expected he would play. So The offense, I think, looked good. The surprise to me was I did not expect that Brandon Ayuk wasn't going to get burned. I didn't
Yeah.
expect that Sermon would be a healthy scratch. What's interesting to me is Ayuk all of a sudden in that Pettis doghouse? Like what's going on here? This is a first round draft pick, and from what I understand, I mean he was a punt returner throughout the game. He was healthy. Why is he not playing? So that was a little interesting to me. Trey Lance, came in, I believe, for 4 snaps. He was mainly a running back. And, I kind of expected that. I said under 6.5 snaps for him. So there wasn't a lot about the offense that I was super surprised about. But I was happy to see that when Mostert went down, they were able to stay effective in the run game. And not only effective, but, I mean, outright, they played well in the run game.
Right.
And that's good to see.
There was a few things that I was really looking to see from the offense. First thing was the offensive line, and they're better than last year. I
yes,
think that is definite. They kept Jimmy for the most part clean. There was, I think, about 3 times where he was like heavily pressured, and one time he was able to get out of it, a couple sacks, which is, I think, okay throughout the game. It wasn't.
He looks
anything,
more mobile though too. I got to give Jimmy credit. Without
yeah,
that knee brace, he looks more mobile.
he has some more oomph. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah, he does.
So I was really happy with Alex. I tweeted it. When you don't hear the offensive lineman's name, that's a good thing, right? So the offensive line played good. Brunskill played well. Nothing bad about McGlinchey. Nothing bad about anybody on the offensive line, which I think is thumbs up, right? We that's something that was a big issue last season. That's not an issue right now.
Right.
The other thing that I was really looking for was, are they going to throw the ball more with Jimmy? Like, are they going to open up the offense? And unfortunately, it was only to one receiver, which was Debo, who had a monster game. But they threw the ball down the field more. And I like that, because that is something that's going to be needed. And it wasn't just off of play action either. They did, open field sets for Jimmy. They open backfield, and he wasn't just doing the normal checkdowns. He was throwing it, 10, 20 yards down the field. He was accurate. There was the one duck, which was the long ball, but, Debo obviously made an amazing adjustment to make that. But for the most part, tight spirals, accurate. There was a few throws that he, led his receivers down the wrong way or like out of bounds instead of, it could have been a touchdown if he led them the right way. Or there was that couple passes that were, behind receivers. But to fumble the first play of the game and to come back the way that Jimmy did, we have to give credit for Jimmy's strength of mentality, because he's had probably one of the toughest off seasons for any quarterback.
Yeah.
From the fan base, from how Shanahan has handled it. And he's come out and done nothing but give this team a chance to win. And I don't like the way that they're bringing in Trey. I don't see how this is helping out his development, nor do I see how it helps out Jimmy as a quarterback when when he brings the team down, 70 yards and then has to give up the touchdown to Trey because they want to bring Trey in, or they bring Trey in just to get walloped. Like every single play they're bringing Trey in is just for him to get hit. Like what is the point of that? How is that helping him in his development? So I think we just need to stick with Jimmy. I think Jimmy has shown he's fine. He didn't throw any interceptions. He did the one fumble, but I think he played above average. I don't think he was just a game manager. I think he showed that he is a starting caliber quarterback for the 49ers, and we could win with him at the helm. And this is coming from a guy all offseason that was saying Trey needs to start, right? And Jimmy should have been traded a long time ago. And I apologize to Jimmy. He's shown me mental toughness. He looks healthy. Like you said, he looks more agile, more mobile. And the passing game looked better than I expected. I am very, very confused about what's going on with Ayuk. Part of that is because he's on all of my fantasy teams. Another part of that is just he's such a good talent, and I don't know if all of the drops that we saw in the preseason now has gotten, maybe it's in his head, and we're not seeing something that Shanahan's seeing through practice, where he's like not necessarily going to him. And obviously, when Debo's playing lights out the way that he's playing, you gotta go with the hot hands. So those are my main takeaways from the offense.
Yeah, well, I'll get more into the quarterback situation when it comes to coaching, because I definitely have some things to say there, but I don't want to use it all now. So yeah, the offense looked fine.
Let's bring in some people. Spicy Nick Danger, go Niners! Absolutely, we gotta win, even though it's a little bit of a sullen feel right now. We still got a victory, so that's great.
Yeah.
Go Jesse. Jesse O is a fan favorite. Heather Taylor thought Jimmy did a good job rebounding after the fumble.
Yeah.
I hope Ayuk can get out of the doghouse. Now, we're all assuming it's the doghouse. Look, it could be a mental thing, because look, Ayuk dropped the ball a lot in the preseason, and they obviously still put him out there as a punt returner, but I find it hard to believe that he's in the doghouse. I don't know if maybe Shanahan's protecting him right now for whatever reason. We don't know, right? So we have to, I want to give Shanahan the benefit of the doubt that he wouldn't put Ayuk in the doghouse because he's way too talented. Maybe there's something going on with Ayuk that we just don't know. They left him on there just to be a weapon, but obviously the pass game was run through Debo this week. I assume, maybe there's going to be a game in the future where it's just all Ayuk. So yeah, we got to just hold our horses there before we jump to any conclusions that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move to the other side of the ball, Jesse. Analyzing the defense. Now, this is a very different situation. Talk to us a little bit about, what you saw from the defense, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, so obviously, I think that overall the defense played well. I think that early on there was definitely some hiccups in the run game. You and I were texting throughout that portion of the game, and I think a lot of that is just by design. Even in 2019, there were some times where they would get gashed a bit in the run game, and most of that is scheme based. They have the big bodies in the middle to stop the run, but when you're running a wide 9, there's going to be holes all up and down that line, and you're relying on the linebackers to get off offensive lineman blocks and make plays, and that's not always going to work for you. And I think once they made the adjustment to squeeze everybody in a little bit more, bring them in tighter, that's when the run game stopped. And out of the 80 or so rushing yards that the running backs had, I got to imagine 75 of those came in that first quarter, right? Like, it just seemed like every time you looked up, they were reeling off 8 to 12 yards easy. So, but when you take in the game as a whole, I think the defense did just fine. And then again, things fell apart a little bit once Veret got injured. And so, that's something that now we have to turn our sights to. I'm curious to see what happens going forward with the Eagles. I'm curious to see what happens with Veret being done for the year. Shanahan said in the post-game presser that they have stayed in contact with Richard Sherman. That doesn't excite me, but they've got to look at bodies, and he's somebody that knows this defense, and he's a veteran. Either way, whether they're relying on rookies or whether they're relying on veterans like Norman and Sherman, it's going to be more of a cover 3, cover 4 defense again. And that doesn't excite me either, but it is what it is. And that's why Jason Veret, even though he's not the best player, was the most important player on this defense. And I think that's going to prove out over the course of this season. So good luck to Jason. I hope that he heals up, but it's going to be tough for the 49ers to get over this one.
Yeah. Spy Nick Danger. So we missed Kinlaw big in this game. Defense needs to stop the run. I mean, yeah, Kinlaw obviously excels at the run stopping. But I agree with Jesse. It was more scheme based, but definitely if he was there, it would have been a big help. How do we match up against the Eagles? We'll definitely get into that later on. Heather, this is why I listen to you guys talk me off the ledge. Any idea how long Kinlaw will be out? 49ers are so secretive with their injuries. It's really hard to say. I mean, having Trey Sermon all of a sudden just be a healthy scratch, it was, out of nowhere. He played so well in the, preseason. It's remarkable why. But so I don't think anybody really knows other than, the coaching staff for the 49ers. As far as the defense for me, I think that the defense showed that they could be really, really good. But then for some reason, I hate it when there's this big lead. All of a sudden, they scheme up this soft, the soft zone, or they just stopped playing the defense the way that they played. That was making making Detroit struggle the whole time, right? Like they stopped playing aggressive. They just played the four. They stopped blitzing. They stopped. The defensive line they were just using the four. Basically the base defense or whatnot, or not even the base. I don't know what they were using as far as just the four defensive linemen, and then they just dropped everybody back.
Yeah.
And we always see that that's how teams come back, right? And I don't understand. I don't know if it's maybe just D'Amico Ryan's going into like how everybody always this is just the standard of what you should do as a defensive coordinator when you have a big lead, is just like drop everybody back and just give those 10-yard plays. I feel like if the 49ers just played defense in the last half of the fourth quarter the same way they played the first three quarters, they would have never come back, right? But once again, that didn't happen. I think a lot of people are looking at the secondary and being like that they're the issue. Veret went down, so all of a sudden, we're going to be struggling in the secondary. And look, our secondary was never our strength. It's always going to be this defensive line, our linebacking core, the safeties. I think that the defensive line wasn't as effective at the end of the game, and that's really what changed the game. And I think it was once again because D'Amico Ryan stopped being D'Amico Ryans at the end of the game, and I don't know why. I was like looking at the game being like, why are we dropping the linebackers back so much? Why are we stop doing everything that caused us to be so successful in this game? And I think that was the biggest key. But overall, I feel like the defense is going to be fine. It's time for these rookies to step up, Dante Johnson to step up. We've seen flashes, and they're going to get a good test next week because Rager and Devontae Smith are no joke at receiver. Hurts is no joke at quarterback. They had a very good game, albeit with the very poor defense in Atlanta, but they still played really well. So it's going to be a big game, but I am not as off the bandwagon as some people are with this defense. I still think we have one of the best defensive lines. I still think we have one of the best linebacking cores, and Al-Aziz jumping up and playing lights out. Like maybe he was the best linebacker in the game this game. And I still think we have two of the best safeties back there. So if three phases of our defense are elite, we should still be okay. It's just about, it's the first game. Look, these guys didn't play together all preseason. Like starters are out. This is the first time everybody was together. Is there work to be done? Absolutely. But can I look at things and see how this defense is going to play and how well they can play together? Yeah, absolutely. This is a better defense than last year, right? And same thing like we talked about the offensive line. The offensive line is better than last year. This defense is better than last year. So I am still optimistic about how good this defense is. Shocking that I'm optimistic, right? But yeah, I think that we'll be fine. I think that there's definitely work to be done, but I don't think that our season is ruined by any stretch of the imagination either.
No, it's definitely not ruined, but you're right. I mean, that defensive line, Goff dropped back 60 times. they only sacked him 3 times out of 60
Right.
dropbacks, right? And obviously, it was the usual suspects. Bosa got one, Ford got one, and then Katavius Street got one. But Armstead did Armstead things. He had 1 tackle and 1 penalty. This guy's getting paid a lot of money to have
Right.
1 tackle and 1 roughing the passer, right? So, these guys are going to have to step up. And that secondary certainly was the secondary was not the strength of the defense, but it was still a strength of the defense, right? And I hope that makes sense. And it's probably not going to be a strength of this defense anymore. So that means that defensive line has to be an absolute game changer and a game wrecker, especially if they are going to go cover 3 and cover 4 instead of cover 1 and blitz. So I'm curious to see what happens in this next week. Detroit also has a pretty good line. They have one of the better centers in the league. Penei Sewell, who knows what he ends up being, but for my money, he's going to be one of the best tackles in the game. So it's not like there was a bunch of bums in front of him, but at the same time, 60 dropbacks, 3 sacks, that's certainly not going to get it done going forward. So that defensive line is going to have to absolutely step it up big time against the Eagles. And as they start to face more of these mobile quarterbacks, they're going to have to wreck the game a lot more than they did today.
I liked how Ebicom played. I think he was disruptive. He almost got there was that
the pitch handoff.
Yeah, pitch reverse where he almost blew that up. If he realized what was going on, he would have just got the ball, but he went for the quarterback.
Yeah.
But I think he was pretty disruptive. I think, let me see right here. How great were Ford and Bosa today. I mean, breaths of fresh air. I think they obviously are going to get better. This is their first game back, but you can see that they were disruptive, especially Bosa. I think Bosa more than Ford had a pretty decent game. There was some, plays like the 4th down play where Bosa got in the backfield. He obviously had a sack.
Yeah.
D Ford obviously going to build into. He got a sack as well, which was great. Can we count on Norman and Lenore as a temporary fix on Veret loss? Look, it's not a temporary fix. We don't need a temporary fix. Veret is not coming back. So it's got to be a permanent thing for the rest of the season. I don't think that Norman, if we have Lenore in there, I don't think Norman is actually going to play over Johnson and Lenore and Thomas, depending on what they do with the defense, because D'Amico likes playing these press man, and Norman isn't much of a press man cover. If they bring in Sherman, I think that tells us a lot about what they're going to start doing. Like you're talking about more of the zone reads.
Mm-hmm.
But, Lenore or Ambry Thomas, it's time for you guys to step up. And we know you have the ability to. It's about, are you going to have the consistency to be able to play? Unfortunately, last half of this game, it didn't look very good. But then again, I also think that has to do with the scheme of them playing soft and just, trying to bend, not break. And look, Goff made some good throws, and, they're, Swift made some good plays. So I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm just not as pessimistic on everything. I think this was more circumstance and it was week 1. You know what I mean? Like, this is the first time everybody's playing together. The fact that the offense looked as good as it did, the fact that we were able to pull out a win, I think all are good signs, and I think we're going to get better. So,
yeah, the thing is that they have to beat the Eagles next week, right? Like that. These are 2 games that they chalked up as wins, and let's hope also, because let's not forget that Mosley didn't play today, right? So if Mosley can come back, at least right away, things are not as dire as what they look today. Today it looked bad because you had Ambry Thomas out there and you had Dante Johnson. Like, if that's what the starters are, not feeling too good about it next week. But if Mosley's able to come back and then kick one of those guys to the bench, I feel a lot better going into that Eagles game. But if he doesn't play, I'm definitely extremely worried about how much of an impact this defense can have next week.
And, impact, I still think that they're going to make a big impact just because of the defensive line and the linebacking core, but definitely
Greenlaw's hurt too, man. He's got that groin. So, again, if he's out, Veret's out, um, you know, Kinlaw's out, it's early, right? And I'm not saying that they can't get it done. They still have some really good pieces there, but that's a lot, man. That's a lot to be without in game 2 of the season. Another East Coast game. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and look, Eagles always play the 49ers tough.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not a gimme like where everybody say, oh, this is an easy victory. No, it's not. The Eagles beat us last year. They are looking sharp this year. Their offense is much better. They have a really good defense that a lot of people overlook. They have a nasty defensive line as well. But look, I think that our offensive line can be good, hold up to the task. I think Jimmy's playing well. Spinick says, will we see Sermon next week with the Mostert injury? I'm not sure how long Mostert's going to be out, but unfortunately, Mostert's fragile. Like he did two rushes for 20 yards, so he's averaging 10 yards per carry, but he can't stay healthy on the field, right? He's amazing when he's playing, but he just can't stay healthy. I gotta believe that they're gonna have to have Sermon there, and be Mitchell and Sermon back in the backfield. But yeah, as far as this defense, we're gonna go. I think we should move on because I think it's gonna play a role in it is the coaching, right? So let's analyze, the coaching. I know you have a lot to say about this, Jesse. So go at it, my man.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Shanahan again. They called a good offensive game, right? So from that standpoint, they did good things there. But Shanahan I don't know, man. There's something about him. I can't put my finger on it, but he messes up some of the biggest, most important things, right? So, is Ayuk, is he in a doghouse or is he not confident? I don't know the answer to that. But if he's in a doghouse, it's like, okay, what are we doing here? This is a first round pick. You can't just doghouse somebody. So we'll see what's going on there. But the thing that frustrates me most is this Trey Lance situation. So we talked about how they cannot alternate these guys in and out. It's not fair to Jimmy, right? At this point, we both wanted Lance to start, but he's not starting. So let's just give the reins to Jimmy. So they bring in Lance. He comes in. He runs the ball the first time, and then he throws a touchdown pass. Then we don't see him for a big chunk of that game. He comes in a couple more times, and he's essentially a running back. I don't understand what we're doing here. Trey Lance, first of all, I can argue that he's not going to develop sitting behind Jimmy G, right? But I'm going to argue even worse than that. He's not going to develop coming in and just being a glorified running back. That's not going to work. The reason he's not playing is because his pocket passing was not up to snuff. We saw it. Shanahan saw it. And Shanahan even talked about it. He talked about how that's where rookie quarterbacks are their weakest. And that's where rookie quarterbacks need to improve. And he thought that Lance had good pocket passing in college and it was something they could work with. But he is an athlete. And he said that athletes do not win long-term in this league. He has to learn to be a pocket passer. And they are going to work on that and develop that with him. Where? When? Right. Bringing him in to be a running back is not the answer. Like that's the most contradictory thing that you can do when you're trying to develop this young player. You're not good at pocket passing. Come in and run the ball. I absolutely don't understand it. Then the other thing I don't understand, I get that the game got close, but there was a long period of time where this game was out of hand. A lot of those starters should have came out, okay? And I tweeted it. And about 20 minutes later, guess what happens? Jason Veret gets injured. Now, a lot of people are like, well, see, the game got close. You can't just remove the starters. It was close. No. This game was not close. It got close by some lucky things. And you absolutely could have removed those starters. And then you could have put the starters back in after the onside kick and said, okay, well, listen, we need to get a stop here. We throw back in Veret and the Warners and Bosa and whatever we got to do. But at that point, Veret doesn't get hurt in that scenario. In my scenario that I laid out and that I've got receipts on what I thought should have happened during the whole timeline before the injury, Veret's still on this team. So I question a lot of long-term things from Shanahan. I'm cool with Jimmy playing. But if Jimmy's going to play, let Jimmy play. Don't pull him out at all. And especially don't pull him out to put a kid in that's already got a broken finger and allow him to be a glorified running back. That's not it, Chief. That is not the way to develop your rookie quarterback. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I agree. And I just think that there was some times where Trey came in that it stalled the offense, right? Jimmy was cooking. Like, Jimmy was playing really, really well. And like, they brought Trey in on a couple of third downs where it was just like he ended up running the ball, where maybe you gave the ball to Jimmy, play action pass, maybe he throws for a first down, right? But we don't know, because we're trying to be too gimmicky and all this kind of stuff. I think Shanahan's trying to play the long game and keep defenses like guessing and all that kind of stuff. But other than the touchdown pass, Trey wasn't very effective in the run game either. Like, he was getting stopped pretty much after gaining a yard or two. Didn't really break off any large runs. So I agree with you with that. Now, as far as the Brandon Ayuk thing, look, did you get a chance to watch the Dallas Tampa Bay game?
Yeah.
Look, Mike Evans was non-existent for a long time in that game as well, right? I think he ended up with like 2 catches, but for majority of that game, people were like, "Where's Mike Evans?" Well, Antonio Brown was having a monster game. You know, Chris Godwin was having a monster game, and in this game, Deebo Samuels was having a monster game. You know, Kittle had some big catches as well. So I think that.
Yeah, but Ayuk wasn't on that's my thing. It's not like Evans was off the field, right? Like, he just wasn't the focus, and that's cool. But Ayuk wasn't playing. Like, there was a big chunk of that game, multiple drives back to back, where Ayuk didn't even come on the field. Like, I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, that is a little bit more, I guess, like, disconcerting. But I also think that like, there's been times where it just, you go with the hot hand, right? And hopefully that's this situation. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I don't know.
And I don't know either. I don't want to place, like, I don't want that to be the focus of it, but it is something that definitely has to be brought up, because this is a first round pick that you traded up to get, right? This is a guy that we all expected to have a breakout season. And sure, he had a drop or two in the preseason and what have you, but he was supposed to come in and be the number 1 receiver. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I drafted Debo in all my leagues. So, like, I'm happy about that, right? I overlooked Ayuk and drafted Debo just because I thought he would get some of the running plays and whatnot. But, Ayuk is supposed to turn the corner, and he had a really good rookie season. Like, all things aside, he played really well as a rookie. And I get Sherfield has stepped up, but he stepped up to be the 3rd guy. Ayuk was supposed to be the number 1 guy, and now he's not even seeing the field for multiple drives in a row. It's just interesting.
Yeah. Mark says our offense struggled to convert a first down in the 4th quarter. Several opportunities to keep the drive and score going while the defense struggles, but Deebo and Kittle are to blame as well. Yeah, I mean, look, we could isolate it to certain plays. It should have never gotten that close. I think it's a combination of, obviously, the Deebo fumble was huge, but that didn't come back to bite us because they ended up stopping him.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with Kittle. Like, the ball bounced funny, but dude, you are our dude. Like, you should be able to handle that without any problem. Yeah. It's funny how, like, Fred Warner just iced the game, and he's like a linebacker, but he's just more He's just more confident, I guess, than anybody else on the team, and I feel more confident in him. But I really think the scheme change with the defense at the end of the game, with DeMeco Ryans playing more soft and stop being aggressive, I think that actually hurt a lot.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
If the defense was playing the way that they were playing earlier in the game, I don't think this is even a game, right? And I agree. I mean, whether to take the starters out or not take the starters out is always going to be a debate. I even saw in the New Orleans game, they were blowing out Green Bay and all the starters were still playing it on both sides of the ball. Even Lattimore, who was injured, who had gotten injured, they still played him. So, that's always going to be debated. If Jason Veret doesn't get injured, are we saying anything? But obviously he did. So, it's like the low hanging fruit. Why are these guys playing, right? But I think for the most part, most teams play the starters the whole time because, like we said, this is the first game that they have back. This is the first game to really work on things, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I think that coaching played a big role in this game. I think they did much better in the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, they kind of took the foot off the gas, and I think that really hurt everything, obviously. And look, let's give Detroit credit. If we were, the announced team was talking about the whole time what Dan Campbell's message is, and that is, when you get punched in the face, how are you going to hold the rope, or are you going to give up, or are you going to fight back? And he's creating a culture of a team that fights back. And we're comparing Detroit to the old Detroit teams that we know are bad, but we don't know. Maybe this is Detroit. What if this Detroit team ends up being like a 9-8 team or 8-9 team? Then we look at this and we're like, oh, okay, well, Detroit wasn't as bad as everybody expected to be, right? And so we don't know. It's just week 1 where it's overreaction, overreaction
for
Sunday.
Sure.
So, but overall, Eagles are going to be a much tougher matchup. I think that the coaching staff has to be better, right? You got to put, especially with guys going down, you got to put people in the right position, and on both sides. And DeMeco Ryans is learning, but he needs to, he's not going to be able to get away with it against the Eagles like he was against Detroit with some of these errors. So,
let's not forget too. I mean, we're looking at a whole new coaching staff, and a lot of pretty much everybody over there this is their first time. Like, we talk about how tough it can be for DeMeco Ryans being a first-time defensive coordinator, but we can say that across the board for the Lions, right?
Right.
And I actually thought that this would be a close game. I said it would be 24-17. I respect the Lions for what they bring to the table, and I thought it would be a tough game. But, that being said, they got gashed with the same stuff over and over, and they didn't make the adjustments. Like, that's where I want to give DeMeco credit. That run game early looked nasty, and he made the adjustments. He pulled away from the wide 9. He started squeezing guys in tighter, at least for a while, so that they could figure out the run game. And then once he knew it was going back to a pass-happy offense, he went back to it. So he made some good adjustments, especially for a first time through. And I think Detroit didn't adjust well. They got hit in the mouth with the same play over and over. That dig route to Debo, it's like, how many times is this going to gash you?
Right.
And I don't expect that to be a thing next week. So that's where Jimmy lives, is across the middle. And even when he throws deep, usually it's over the middle. So I'm curious to see how the Eagles change things up. And I know that Shanahan, as far as a schemer, he'll have something for the Eagles. So I am excited about that. Again, I never question Kyle Shanahan's ability to scheme. I think he'll be good as far as that goes, but it's just some of the bigger picture things, man. And like I said, I have receipts. It's not like I'm going in after the fact and saying, oh, see, Veret shouldn't have been in there. No. Before the injury happened, I said, pull these starters out. Let's get out of here healthy. And then, boom, Veret's down. Multiple guys started going down with injuries. Most of them were cramps or what have you. But I don't know, man. I thought that was very questionable.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously played out to be the worst case scenario in the situation. But so let's move on. Let's start negative. Keep going on this negative. trajectory going on.
Yeah.
Disappointing performances, man. Who were some of the guys you expected to play better that didn't play as well as you wanted them to?
Yeah, I mean, Armstead,
Yep.
number one, public enemy number one tackle, one penalty. Ayuk, again, was a non-factor, 0 catches, in and out of the game. So that's definitely disappointing. And then I would say, honestly, that's probably really it for me. I don't think anybody else played horrible by any means. The interior, the defensive line early on was a little off, but again, a lot of that was game plan. I'm really not that disappointed with a lot of individuals. Kyle a little bit. We just talked about that obviously,
Right.
but as far as the players go, definitely disappointed in what we didn't see from Ayuk or Armstead.
Yeah, I think Armstead and Ayuk are definitely Ayuk obviously just didn't get an opportunity, right? I don't think he even got a target this game, so you can't really blame him if he doesn't even get a chance to.
No, for sure,
ball,
but
right?
I mean, if he's not better than Sherfield or Sanu, like that's disappointing in itself.
Right.
Like if you can't see the field, like that's a disappointment. So
yeah, Armstead, I think definitely was a little disappointed in Juszczyk. I mean, he wasn't utilized very well. Like, and I don't think that I didn't see his normal like blocking prowess like I used to. So I think he needs to sharpen up a little bit. Kittle, once again, I mean, when he got the ball, he beasted out, but I think he only got 2 catches if I'm remembering right. They went
4
for
catches for 78.
4 catches for 78. So big yards, but I felt like it was a quiet 78 yards. You know what I mean? Like it didn't seem like super impactful like he usually is. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think I don't think it's individuals that played badly. It was more I think just the coaching staff. I think this game getting so close is on the coaching staff more than the players, which is something that we can't normally say, right? Usually it's, the players play the game, but I think all the players were actually playing pretty well, and they just were told to ease up, and that's when Detroit was able to make their comeback.
For sure.
But let's go to a positive. Standout performers. So I think there were quite a few, at least 2 or 3 that definitely stood out. Guys that maybe we didn't expect to play as well as they did.
For sure.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about these guys, Jesse?
Yeah, obviously Debo, right? Like that's the most obvious one. Absolute beast. That was one of my big players going into the season. I said that Debo is going to put the league on notice this year, and he's starting out very early with that. So I love to see that. Debo is my favorite player on this team, and I just think he's a hell of a player, hell of a football player overall, and he really, really showed out today. He had the fumble, which was disappointing, but outside of that, I mean, he went absolutely bonkers today. Yeah. So Debo's one. The player that really stepped up, especially after Greenlaw left, was Azeez Al-Shaair.
Man,
he had an impact on the game. He had the play against Hawkinson towards the end of the game where he knocked the ball out of his hands. I thought that was a great play by him. It was a pick route. He was able to navigate through that and dislodge the ball from Hawkinson. So I thought that was a very good play. And I just thought overall he played really well. And to that point, Greenlaw, I mean, up until he got injured, he was playing very well also. So those are the 3 for me that really stood out. And, I left a big one for you, and then I'm sure you have a couple that you also like to see. So,
yeah, I mean, I think Debo obviously was great. Azeez was amazing. Like, I think he played a big role in slowing down those running backs because he was really the spy on those running backs coming out of the backfield. He had a lot of great plays. I mean, I remember that one against Swift where in the backfield, it was like a little screen and he just kind of blew that up in the backfield, which was amazing to see. He seems a lot faster than he used to.
He does.
Before. So if he could play that way, I think this linebacking core just goes But I think the MVP of this game has to be Elijah Mitchell, right?
For sure.
He to step in and have over 100 yards, touchdown, to play the way that he played. Like when Mostert goes down and you see no Trey Sermon, it's like, oh my God, this is like, what are we gonna do? And then Mitchell just comes in, calm, cool, collect, like he's supposed to be the starter, and just blows up,
For sure.
the rushing game. And look, I don't think Debo has the game that he has if Mitchell isn't running as well as he's running, right?
No.
Because everything's off the play action for the 49ers. And, props to, the 49ers are, everybody has their opinions about, how they draft in the first 3 rounds. But fifth round on, they hit like a lot,
Money.
right? Yeah, and maybe they should just trade all of their top 3 round picks and get like situated players and like stars and all this kind of stuff, and just pick from the fifth round on, because those guys end up being like very productive players, especially when they pick running backs fifth round and below, or even undrafted running backs. And it's great to see that Mitchell, and it's really weird, man. They didn't even really, I think it felt like Hasty got like 3 attempts and everything else was just Mitchell, which is weird because usually they do it by committee, but I guess they really trust Mitchell, and it showed why. He played amazing. I'm pretty sure he's off of everybody's waiver wire at this point. Or everybody put in for the waiver wire in fantasy for him if he's not already drafted to your league.
For sure.
And then I really liked, I think Tart played well. I think, Ward had kind of like a quiet game, but, Tart had some pretty big tackles. Fred Warner was solid, but the 3 you mentioned, I think were obviously Mitchell, I think were the biggest ones. I want to give props to Contavious Street for coming in and, being a disruptor as well. Nick Bosa, I think, played well. But look, I think Mitchell, Debo, Alshire are the 3 studs that really came out of this game. And for these guys to be people that we weren't depending on necessarily, I think is a good sign, because these other guys that we are depending on are only going to get better. And it's great to see that we have a team where a new star can show up every single time. And I think that's a great way to keep moving into this season. So, to continue, I still think this is a playoff team, regardless of the injuries. I still think we have the ability to make, to be one of the best teams in the NFC West. Like everybody in the NFC West look good. The Rams are looking good right now. So it's the best division for a reason. So yeah, man. And before we leave, man, let's talk a little bit about a preview for next week. What needs to be better for the 49ers to get a win in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to clean up a lot, right? And mainly it's because Philadelphia has a mobile quarterback, and they have 2 pretty good receivers. Like I would say that the 2 receivers that they've got are better than anything that the Detroit Lions have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the 49ers,
and they have a solid tight end in Goddard too.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. So, that's definitely something that's going to be different for next week. I don't expect that running game to be near as good as what Detroit's is. When the season's done, I think Detroit's going to have one of the better running games in the NFL. And so I think that, that's where they can make it a one-dimensional thing and hopefully hold up in the pass game, especially without Veret. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if Mosley can play, and Greenlaw and some of these other guys that will be key for that pass game. So, that's what gives me a little bit of early anxiety is, can they stop the pass game? But I expect offensively that the 49ers will be able to move the ball just fine. I think they'll put up points. It's just a matter of getting some key stops, and that's what I'll be looking forward to. And seeing if they come out and cover 1, or if they play a lot of cover 3 and cover 4 now that Veret has gone down. That would be my guess. I think we're going to see a lot more zone defense. I think, and that, you talked about how the Lions made a bit of a comeback. It's when the 49ers started playing soft. And although I don't expect them to play that soft in their base defense, Zone is naturally softer than man. So
Right.
curious to see how it holds up. But those are the things that I'm thinking about as we head into week 2.
The two groups that need to be sharp next week are the offensive line and the defensive line.
For sure.
The offensive line needs to understand that the defensive line that the Eagles have is nasty. It's probably the most underrated defensive line in the league, and it's going to be a much bigger challenge than what they faced with Detroit. They played very solid this game. They're going to have to be that plus more against the Eagles because the Eagles have guys that could really be disruptors, and their strength to their defense is their defensive line, just like our strength to our defense. And the other side is the defensive line. They have to be dominant. Whomever's there, like if Kinlaw's not there, okay, Kinlaw's not there, but these guys have to make Jalen Hurts extremely uncomfortable, and they have to be able to make him rush to make decisions. We have to treat him like a young quarterback, first year starter, and they have to eat. They can't be 3 sacks. It has to be constant pressure every single down. They have to beat up that offensive line that has some holes in it, right? Because the Eagles offensive line used to be really, really good, but they lost some people. And they haven't replaced them very well. So I need the defensive line to have a big game, offensive line to have a big game. If those two things happen, I think the 49ers could win this game pretty comfortably, actually, because if they could, if those two in the trenches can dominate, which is going to be tough because I think
absolutely.
I think that's going to be the key to victory for the Eagles because look, we could only do the cornerbacks are going to be the cornerbacks. You know what I mean? So the safeties have to play better. They have to help out these corners because whomever plays is either going to be inexperienced or young. And I think that as long as they don't let Rager and Smith get behind them because the safeties are there, we should be okay. But
for sure,
it's our first test against a mobile quarterback as well. So
absolutely.
Evacom, this is why we brought you in, man. You should be the star of the show.
Yeah, this is it right here. So this is the first big test of the season when it comes to mobile quarterbacks, and I'm just curious to see how it plays out. You know, I feel blessed that the 49ers got a game under their belt. Again, week 1 is always tough. I don't care who you are. You can look across the NFL. You can see a lot of teams that you would expect to win or should have won, didn't win, or they're in razor thin games. So, you know, week 1's always a crapshoot. And it's the reason that the 49ers in the past, and Kyle Shanahan in particular, his offenses usually do not click week 1. So the fact that they were able to play as good as they did week 1 gives me a lot of hope for week 2. I think that they're going to be that much better. You know, points aside, I just think that they're going to be that much sharper. And it really is going to come down to that defense and especially that defensive line. So I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Yep. Let's get some guys in here before we leave. Mark said Kyle didn't make bad decisions.
Yeah.
Are you saying Kyle is perfect? No. We're saying the absolute opposite.
Definitely not.
Seahawks Kingdom, thank you for joining in. Mostert told y'all he's injury prone. Thanks, Captain Obvious. We all know that.
Yeah. Who else is? How about Veret? Is he injury prone? Let's see. Jimmy, does he get the injury? But like, come on, man, we know.
Junior C, this game gave me anxiety. Absolutely, man. The end of this game was way too uncomfortable. Junior C also says we should just go out with more blitzes. Might as well. Hey, that might be a key to victory, but hopefully, you know, that defensive line could just be disruptive, you know, without the blitzes, so we could help out some of these corners and, you know, drop some of these linebackers into coverage and so on and so forth. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, hey, look, at the end of the day, we got to win. We are right there at the top of the division, at the top of the conference. We are on pace. Jimmy looked good. Usually he doesn't look good in opening games, you know, early in the season. So there's a positive there. And this should be the worst that we ever play, right? We should be getting better every single week. So if this is the worst that we ever play, I think we have a lot of things to look forward to this season. Anything else you want to mention, Jesse?
No, man. I'm glad week 1's out of the way. Excited for week 2, and curious to see if Sherman ends up back on this team. I got a feeling that he'll be there by Tuesday, Wednesday. So we'll see how it goes.
Anything you want to drop for your streaming schedule this week?
Yeah, man. So Tuesday, I am doing open mic. Again, that's just the Niner bit, weekly bit on my channel. A lot of times it's going to be call-in shows, but this week it's actually going to be with Rich Madrid. So curious to see what he brings to the table as far as what he thought of the game. He's the one guy that's probably more pessimistic than me. So very curious to see how that goes. I might have to play the positive role there to make sure that everybody in the chat doesn't get too pissed. But yeah, so that's going to come up Tuesday. Wednesday, I'll be on Grant's show. Thursday, Hammer and Nails. And then Saturday is the weekly show on Last Second Sports. So big week ahead for sure.
Absolutely. For me, I got Jack Hammer on tomorrow at 6. And then I'm going to be doing some shows throughout the week with, some new guys. I think we're going to get Silverado Kev back on the show on Wednesday. So should be a fun week. Please keep to find everything. Make sure you subscribe to Last Second Sports. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Jesse and I will be back next Sunday, same time, to break down the Eagle and 49er game. Hopefully we'll be 2-0 at that time as well.
Yeah,
but it was
let's break down a W, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys for all joining in. You guys have been great in the chat, keeping us asking questions and whatnot. And we appreciate everything you guys do. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, and we will see you guys all next time. Everybody have a beautiful night and stay safe.